It might sound like I have some special knowledge, some special access to something that I speak about here in these videos. But I'm inclined to say that it's just not true at all. What I'm referencing when I speak in the way I speak in these videos, what I'm referencing when I talk about non-duality, emptiness, fullness, paradoxes, all whatever I speak about, I'm referencing the senses actually in real time. So it's not like I have some access to some cosmic, spiritual, otherworldly dust or something that I snort and gives me the ability to speak some kind of special language. It's actually that I'm just totally paying attention to what's here. And the funny thing about that is everybody is. You are right now. The senses are immediately and immensely available, eminently available, always, all the time. The difference is I'm not interpreting it. It may sound like I'm interpreting it, but I'm not. I'm not interpreting the experience. When we interpret the experience, what we do is we turn it into something it's not. We turn it into a thought. We turn what I'm just going to call the visual sense, or that which is available through the visual sense. We turn that into space. We turn it into dimension in a seemingly very solid way. Like when you believe in that solidity of the three-dimensional world, it feels very real. So real that when you hear people talking about what I talk about sometimes, it's like I'm talking about La La Land, right? Like how can I talk about experiencing not a world? Or how can I talk about there not being a world to experience? Well, again, it's the senses that show this, demonstrate it clearly. It's just that the interpretation is what turns it into a world, what turns it into dimension, what turns it into distance, what turns it into an array of things and people, all relegated to or in relation to a subject that you never really thoroughly turn around to look to see if it's even there. When you do, then you have an awakening. If you authentically look for it, don't think about it, but look for it. You often have a shift in identity, and that starts the whole ball rolling with this whole process. And at some point, not only do you realize that what you thought you were, what you took yourself to be, a bunch of thoughts, a bunch of ideas, concepts, memories, just isn't what you are at all. That's just not pointing to any kind of reality. Now, where that lands, strangely and paradoxically, can be on a spectrum of, on one end, it looks like I am. It feels like I am. This pure sense of I am. Or perhaps I could say a sense of self with a capital S. All pervasive, infinite, eternal. On the other end, with the same insight, you might interpret it as no self. That I can see that there's no self because what I thought I was a self. I thought, et cetera, about all the beliefs, what I was saying before. You see, that's not there. So there must not be a self, right? Now, I will say both of those at this stage of things are interpretations still. They're subtle interpretations, but they're still interpretations. The realization of no self, anatta, is not just what I said. It's not just looking and seeing like, oh, all the things I thought I was, all the thoughts, etc. They don't point to anything real. They're just a bunch of thoughts floating in God knows what, coming and going. But there's no self that is being defined by that. Seeing that's great, but that is not the same thing as anatta. Just to be clear, but it's an insight for sure. It's a shift in identity. So yeah, when you first really take that good look inward to see who I am, what's really going on in here, what's going on with the thoughts, that's when you really start to deconstruct the subject. But strangely, you also become aware of the subject as such. You realize how much attention, energy, contraction goes into being a central experience within a whole array of other experiences that seem distant and different, right? Objects. So you see into the whole subject-object construct at some level when you have that shift, but you haven't dissolved it yet. When the subject-object construct dissolves, then it's just crystal clear that what I'm saying is true. There's no boundary. It may still feel like there's space in some sense. It still may feel like there are objects in some sense, but the sense of there being boundaries between a subject and an object and being the center of everything all the time, that's gone, right? So that iteration or that overlay or that interpretation isn't going on anymore. This is what I mean by now I can look into the sense world and see like, oh, okay, well, I can't say what is there, but I can say there are no boundaries there for sure. The boundaries are thoughts. The boundaries are an interpretation. Sure, it happens quickly and it feels really intimate until you see and experience what's even more intimate, and then it dissolves. But it's a thought. It's a non-conceptual thought. It's an interpretation. So this is what I mean when I say without interpreting the senses, you're not going to find boundaries. You're not going to find division, and you're not going to find a center. And then ultimately, you're not going to find form at all, or dimension, or space, or time. That's the deeper end of that non-dual insight. And it's, again, crystal clear. You just suddenly see like, whoa, there's no physical world here. There's just no physical world. Not that there needs to be. As soon as you realize there isn't, you realize there doesn't need to be, because there never was. And that's a direct sensory perception. It's so direct it's not even a perception. I can't explain that logically to you, but I know you can realize it. So there's that. So that's non-duality, right? That's a very clear, thorough dissolving of the sense of subject, sense of time, space, dimension, objectivity, subjectivity, all of it. Boundaries, gone. That's what non-duality is. And it's a realization that's ongoing and clear. It's very freeing once you've done the shadow and trauma work that will be associated with it. And there always will be. But it's a very peaceful, clear, natural, effortless way to be, with no one in it. With no one to enjoy that necessarily. There's no one apart from it going, cool, right? I always have to point that out, because that's kind of what the mind does with these statements when it doesn't have when the insight isn't clear. The mind is never going to have the insight. The me, the sense of self, like all that, it's not going to have that insight, but the insight can be had by itself, to itself. Yeah. That's it. It's the senses. The senses are so bright, crystal clear, non-dual. That's what I speak from. It's all the information you need about anything. It's all the prajna wisdom you need. It's all the intimacy you need. It's all the clarity you need. It's beyond clear. Again, no magic dust. No spiritual bells and whistles. They can come, but those are usually fluctuations in consciousness, which can feel like all kinds of wild and wacky things, including ego death and all of it. You can have all kinds of wild and crazy and extreme experiences. Go take psychedelics, you'll have them, right? Those are all within consciousness. What I'm pointing to here is simple, crystal clear, non-dualistic, formless, always available, not in time, intimate, free, spontaneous, weightless.